someone gave me a shot to show them what I can do. It's not a pity party. You know, I don't want people to, you know, show me any pity or to feel bad for me. I am very proud that I was treated as, you know, as every other actor. Somebody wasn't just saying, well, it sucks what you went through and you came out, you know, a one-legged tap dancer. Good job. It was all that hard work while I went through chemo to go back to school and to perform and to keep going, figuring out what I wanted to do, all led up to that moment to say, we see you.
That's Evan Ruggiero, and I'm Brian Falchuk.
The Do-A-Day Podcast, where you hear from the most inspiring people who have been through hard times, overcome them, and have turned around to help others with what they've learned. I'm your host, Brian Falchuk. I know because I've lived it myself. I've written about it in my book, Do a Day, and that's why I'm bringing you this show. Remember, today's a new day. Go out and do it.
Day doers, I got a big episode for you today. It's a really powerful one, and there are some stories that are powerful and difficult and take your breath away. This is one of those, but it doesn't leave you there. It also reminds you just how resilient and capable human beings can be, even when they're up against the hardest of hard, if they choose to be, if they have that empowerment, that sense of capability, that sense of, drive and passion. You'll see when we get into it. The guy that I have on is Evan Ruggiero. Evan started dancing, tap dancing actually, from a very early age, and he was kind of a virtuoso. I don't know if that's the right word to use for a tap dancer, but he was really good at it. Let's put it like that. He grew up in New Jersey, and he just kind of like became a force to be reckoned with in the tap dancing community. Went to college and did tap dancing while he was there, and performing arts and in theater, musical theater. He got his Bachelor of Fine Arts in musical theater, and that's all great. And he was on his way to Broadway, and something happened. Something stood in the way. And I kind of want to tell you what it is so you know who this guy is, but I also kind of don't, because there's something in hearing the story firsthand as it played out that there's too much power in that, I think, for me to spoil it. So I think I'm going to stop there and not actually fully introduce him and his story, because you've got to hear it live. But what I will say is I found this guy because he was on the Ellen show, and he's been profiled a ton on the internet. And my son and my wife and I were actually looking around at some different inspirational videos and saw his, and it was like, wow, this is pretty incredible. He's in a bunch of different shows. He's doing an Off-Broadway show in the summer of 2018. He won an award for one of them, a Clive Barnes Award that he'll talk about. He's really, really inspiring. He's really, really talented. So I've gotten to see him on video, but see him tap dance. It's amazing. But you got to know about the missing link in this story, and it's unreal. So I'm not really going to tell you the whole deal. I'm going to leave it there. You've got to listen. You've got to hear it. You are going to be moved. And just hang with it, because you may be like, where's the story going? And then it goes somewhere. So prepare yourselves. This is Evan Ruggiero. It's an amazing story, and you've got to hear it. And you got to hear the positivity and the... Let's just jump in, because I'm just going to keep talking in circles. Let's jump right into the show.
Evan Ruggiero, thank you so much for being here. This is quite an honor to have you on. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much, Brian. I'm happy to be here.
It was, I was telling you before we started recording how my son has been all giddy about me talking to you, because he's actually the one who showed me one of the videos of you, and he's just totally in awe. And I love that. Like that was a sign to me that not only are you someone who's been through a lot, and we will get into your story, but you're inspiring people. And I'm sure you're aware of it, but I don't know at what a level.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very it's a very interesting thing almost to talk about when someone says, "Hey, you're inspiring and you inspire me." And and like you said, we'll get into it with everything, but to briefly touch upon it, it was almost like, when I went through everything that we're about to talk about, it was just like trying to come back to my everyday life, and try to get through those goals and to have that dream, to follow that dream, and just taking things one step at a time. No pun intended. As
we're so like anticipating or setting up.
I know.
Story.
So everyone's like, "What's happening?"
We should. What do you mean, Step? We should jump into it. So, yeah, please tell people like what's the story here, and I mean, you can go back if you want, because you told me stuff about your teenage years and the kind of person you were, and I think there's an interesting contrast to today. So take us through the story. What brought you here?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the day to 1995. I saw my sister in a dance class, and I just thought, this looks like a lot of fun. Why not give it a shot? My father had gotten me the Michael Jackson VHS history, or his story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that old VHS, and it was just like, oh man, if Michael Jackson's out here dancing like guys can dance, this is cool. And then seeing my sister in class and seeing her having fun, and knowing that there was a place that I could actually do that, I thought, let me go here and let me start dancing. So I started out with a street jazz or a hip hop class.
Okay, I was just going to ask you what kind of dance it was back then.
Oh yeah. So it was very much like that Michael Jackson style. And my buddy across the street from me, we both signed up together. So the two of us were the only guys in class.
Nice.
And it was a fun first year.
And this is where in the country is this? Is this New York area?
This is, I live in New Jersey.
Okay.
This took place in Old Bridge, New Jersey. And the second year, I told my parents that I wanted to take tap. And I got tap shoes. And there was something about it from day one that I knew tap was going to follow me for a long time. It instantly clicked. And I heard it. I could hear the rhythms in my head, and I understood how to move my feet to enunciate those rhythms. And I spent a few years at the studio learning and getting all the education that I could. And and this sounds. And then by the age of 10, I know I was so young. But at the age of 10, I knew that I needed to be pushed more with tap dancing, and
that's a really mature kind of realization that a lot of kids don't have.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was my mother and myself, and we knew that I wasn't getting the I wasn't learning to the best of there was more to learn and understand about tap dancing that I wasn't going to receive just at my dance school, and I needed to broaden that spectrum of dance. And so I found this boot camp that was being run by the New Jersey Tap Ensemble, which was a company dedicated to rhythm tap dancing. And I went for it. So I studied that summer at these camp sessions, and I really loved it. And the director said, "Look, why don't you audition for my company? It's a professional tap company. We have a youth ensemble. All of our performance, everything that you study with me, we don't charge you to get this education, and you'll perform around New Jersey and New York." So I thought, yeah, why not? So I auditioned for the company, and I got in, and the director of that company was Deborah Mitchell. And one of my very first performances was at Lincoln Center in New York.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was exciting. It was. Yeah. I think that was actually my second performance.
Evan, where were your parents in this mix in terms of being supportive versus pushing versus holding back? Like, where were they on, in the equation?
I have to talk about my father then for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Because my dad wanted to be a baseball player, and he was actually drafted to the Cincinnati Reds minor league equivalent. Wow. How they have their minor league organizations before you go off to the majors. And that was something that he really wanted to do, and he hurt his arm while playing, so he could never play. So when I was younger and going through all of this, I was a very well-rounded child. I played soccer, baseball, football on the block, and then I just happened to be a dancer as well. And a lot of I was in a baseball league, Sarewood South Little League. That was it. And there were just times where I just didn't really care so much to be there. A famous Evan story of mine is when it was the bottom of the ninth and the bases were loaded, and I knew that I had to be at a dance rehearsal, and I was only allowed to miss 2 rehearsals, and there was no way that I was going to miss it for this baseball game. And I see my mom in the car, and I'm about to go up. I'm on deck. I'm about to be up at bat. I just was like, I don't know if I could. I can't be late. I can't miss dance class for this. And I'm looking at my mom, and I'm looking at the coach, and I just I turned to my coach, and I just said, "Sorry, coach, I gotta go. I have to go to dance right now." and I walked over home plate, and I was just like, I gotta go to dance. That's it. And that was one one thing that led me to believe that baseball wasn't going to be in my future.
Yeah.
But the next best one was when the following year, when I was out in center field, and nothing's coming out to center field when you're 9 years old. And this one high fly comes out. It was my chance to finally do something. And I don't know what was going. I was probably just thinking about dance out there and swatting flies. And the ball comes out, and I go to jump and catch it, but I do what's called in dance a tour jeté, which is a very, it's a jump in the air. It's a ballet
it's
jump.
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's a very beautiful, graceful
Yeah.
jump where you jump in the air and you kick 1 foot forward and you spin. You do a 180, and then you land on the opposite foot, and the opposite leg is in arabesque, which is outwards, and
you never see it on a baseball field.
No, you don't see this on a baseball field at all. But let alone I caught the ball while doing this, and the whole the crowd is going crazy. It's this big thing. I'm thinking, holy crap! I still caught the ball. Why did I just jump like that? What happened? But my dad's there in the crowd, and the guy next to him just goes, "Holy shit! It looked like that guy was out there doing ballet." And my dad turns to him and goes, "Yeah, he does." And so my parents were always there, and they always supported me, even when I quit baseball that year to pursue my love for dancing. My mother took me to every single rehearsal in Montclair, which was about a 45 to an hour drive in traffic, drove me up and down once a week. My father, both my parents were at every single performance. And my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, they were all there too.
Family was there.
All of my family was there, so they knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Well, that's awesome. And your dad could have very much been this is a disappointment. I was going to, relive my glory days through my son, and right. He stood by what you cared about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the other extreme of show business hovering parents that are.
Right.
I was just at a conference, and there was also a child beauty pageant going on, and
those are. Whew.
Yeah, and I was
a whole nother world.
I was expecting there to be reality TV cameras around because of what I was watching. I was like, this must be fake, but that's just it's another scene. So it could have been either extreme, and your parents sound like they were nicely balanced in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's good.
I mean, don't get me wrong, but once it was that this was what I wanted to do, and it became very evident that I wanted to have a career in the arts, my parents did what they could to support me and find classes for me in New York City that would cater to that, so that after a day of school, I would be in New York City and I would be studying an acting class or a singing class or something like that. So they pushed me when I said this is what I want to do, how can I get a better education on it? So there was that that drive and motivation.
Yeah. So take us forward.
Yeah. So middle school was a time where I was able to explore the world of musical theater, that it wasn't just dance anymore, that you can be on stage and you can sing, act, and dance. And so I never really took a singing lesson, but I used to, sing songs in the car here and there. And I auditioned for Annie Get Your Gun, and I got in as little Jake. And it was an exciting part. It was an exciting time to be a sixth grader in the school musical. So I did that for the next 3 years, all the way through 8th grade. In high school, everyone's kind of finding themselves and figuring out who they are and what they want to do for the rest of their lives. I'm a big musician as well. I play the drums, guitar, piano, saxophone. I sing as well. So I was involved in the marching band. I was in the drum line. I played the snare drum. And actually, my freshman year of high school, I stopped dancing at my dance studio.
Wow.
But I continued to dance with the professional company, which was once a week. So I kept up with my tap dancing, but I left the school so I could play more music. And then when I got around after my junior year going into senior year, I left the marching band so that I could pursue more theater. Because at that point I was taking my SATs. I was really focusing on what I wanted to go to college for, and that was going to be musical theater. So I started the audition process and the application process. And when you apply to school as a musical theater major, it's a 2-part process, sometimes 3. There's your formal, your typical application to college. You fill that out, you write your essay, your transcripts are there, your letters of recommendation, all of that. Sometimes you go through the interview process as well, but then there's the part of the application process that not a lot of other students typically go through when you're applying to college. This process was the audition process, where I had to sing, dance, and act, and have an interview, and do music theory tests and vocal tests and sight singing tests. So you're learning dance combination. You go in with a couple songs prepared. You go in with a couple monologues prepared, and it's a whole day ordeal. And then it's a waiting game to find out if you actually got in. So I did that like 3 or 4 different times around New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. And there was a school in particular that I really wanted to go to, and that was Montclair State University. I wanted to go to Montclair because it was very close to New York City, without actually being in the city. And I wanted to have that liberal arts college education and that campus feel. Mm-hmm. The other reason I wanted to go was because my tap company was in Montclair. So I basically grew up.
It worked out.
Yeah, I grew up in this city, and it was I wanted to be there. And the third reason was that they had a very new tap program, and the director, Clay James, was a phenomenal tap dancer, and that very much appealed to me. So I auditioned there, I got in, and I had a great first year.
And you were 18 at the time?
Yeah, I was 18, and from that moment on, I was never sitting the fence. Yeah. I was always accounted for when it came down to who had to go where and who can we utilize in the show, which was a really awesome thing, because now I was doing something that not everybody else was having the experience to do, and I was learning all about the different aspects of how the ensemble works in a show. It's not just about principal roles. So first year was awesome, and then I went down to Miami to do really exciting stuff, and then I came back my second year, and I was cast in a couple different shows, and here's where everything starts to take a turn. Yeah. I felt a pain in my right leg, and I thought I had just fractured it from dancing or ballet class or something, and I have an x-ray taken, and my doctor says that he wants me to go to Sloan Kettering in New York to have this looked at by a specialist. And immediately you hear Sloan Kettering and you think cancer. Yeah, that's it. You're like, I'm going to a hospital that specializes in cancer. You must think I have cancer.
Yeah, cancer's in their name. You know what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I spoke with an orthopedic surgeon, and he said, just based off of the x-rays, he wants to, do a biopsy tomorrow. And I said, I'm in a show right now. I can't really take time off. And he said, oh, you can't take time off. Well, what if you have cancer? Are you going to take time off, to kind of postpone a diagnosis of cancer to get through a show? You don't mess around with these kind of things. This is cancer we're talking about. So I said, okay, fine. So I had the biopsy done, and then sure enough, it came back that I had cancer, and I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer, in my right tibia, which is the shin bone. So lots of things swirled through my head at that moment, and I had to take the time off of school. I had to leave that show, and now the only thing that I was focusing on was surviving and beating this. So the first, the necessary steps that had to be taken were, we needed to operate immediately, and being a tap dancer, a dancer of all aspects, I did not want to jeopardize anything that could take away from that.
Yeah.
So every surgery that we had that we spoke about in the beginning was all about how to salvage both legs, because we had to take bone out of the left leg to put into the right leg where the cancer was, and we didn't want to take muscle out of the left leg to nourish that area, because too much, we didn't want it to jeopardize my dancing.
So Evan, was that? Can I just ask, was that on your desire, or was that the plan from the start? So were they pushing you down a different route, and you wanted to go?
We had a lot of different options, and right now and at the time, amputation was never on the table.
Okay.
There were ways to save my leg, and we had spoken about cadaver bones, and we had spoken about taking bones out of my body. Well, what we did is we took the left fibula out of my left leg, and we put it in my right leg, and they basically inserted it into the tibia bone where the cancer was. They got rid of the cancer, and because it was my body's own bone, it would, and it was using my own blood supply.
Yeah, there's no rejection issue.
Grow, right? Yeah. It would eventually grow to become a tibia.
So they took the whole bone out, or a piece of it?
They took the whole fibula bone out of my left leg. So I now just have one bone in my
I was just going to ask, so you don't have a fibula in your left leg?
Right.
Wow.
Right. So we're talking about all this. Then there was a blood clot in my right leg, and we had to open everything up and kind of figure out where we were going now with this. And the logical steps were that we were going to take some lat muscle from my back and run it alongside my thigh through my calf, and use that as muscle so that there could be blood flow and circulation. So that all worked. I spent 33 days in the hospital, and I made it home for Christmas. And this was Christmas 2009. It was right about to be New Year's 2010. So I was able to go home. My parents were there every day. My mom spent every night with me.
So 33 days straight, how many operations was this?
33 days, and I had a total of 4 operations, five operations in 33 days.
And these are, nothing you've described sounds trivial by any stretch. These are major.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. These are major to the point where every time I had to do one, I had to get a catheter. And, now I've had, how many times I've had a catheter? You know how painful that is in itself? So.
And that is just, the shock to the body on top of fighting
absolutely.
Cancer. That's it.
And then you're hooked up to IV fluids, and you're on pain medicine, and there's all these neurological things that are happening because of all those pain meds, and trying to get off of them, but also trying to stay on them so that you're not in pain. There's a lot that goes into it. So it's it's not just like you're kind of sitting in bed for 33 days, and you're kind of just hanging out, and you got a day off.
Yeah.
You're having major surgeries,
and you're not walking at this time at all. You've got a bone missing from one leg, and
your body's, atrophying.
Yeah.
Lots of things are, when I finally got out of the hospital and I was starting to walk on crutches. So I had this large metal external fixator on my leg that kind of looked like a halo that people have on their head, and it was holding all of the bones in place. So I couldn't put any weight on my leg whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, from spending all that time in the hospital, tendons and ligaments tighten up, things that you don't even think of. And I couldn't, my left foot was almost in a pointed position. And it took a good week or two after being home to actually be able to bear weight on my foot and use crutches and to actually lay it flat on the floor.
Wow.
I was almost walking on my tippy toes for a while.
I can imagine how excruciatingly painful the PT process was just to get to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we held off on PT for about 2.5 months, just because we had to let my body recover. So now I'm home. 2010, it's great. Started PT, like I said, in March. I'm getting stronger. My muscles are coming back. Everything is moving forward. From that time, from when I got out of the hospital to May 10th, I had about 3-4 other surgeries. What did I have? 3 other surgeries. Just the kind of very minimal, like overnight stays, nothing big, same day surgery type things to keep everything clean, to shave the bone, to make sure everything was, growing in my leg. Then I had this one operation that the doctors were going to take some hip bone and they were going to put it into my right leg because hip bone is very lively, as they said. Oh, and they were taking off the external fixator. I was so happy because for months and months, all I wore was one pair of big baggy sweatpants because I was self-conscious. I was embarrassed of this thing. I didn't want anyone to see my leg.
Yeah.
And it was coming off. I've been waiting for this day forever. And I woke up from that operation and it was gone, but I knew something was off because my hip felt totally fine. It didn't feel, there was no pressure or pain or anything.
It didn't feel post-operative.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I woke up and my doctor came to me and he said, Evan, I'm very sorry to tell you this, but your cancer has come back. And we will discuss tomorrow what steps we need to take in order to save your life. So I kind of just, I had just woken up from surgery, so I couldn't really comprehend what was happening. But, everything was okay. And for me, at least. And then we had the big conversation the next day. And that's when everything was not okay. And
why was everything okay for you in that first moment? Were you just not even thinking about the gravity of things?
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I really wasn't. I think the idea of the fixator being off and for me to have my life back, for me to be able to wear a pair of jeans again.
Yeah.
Was my big thing, and having that normalcy in my life again, I didn't, and I just kind of was thinking, okay, so we have to do something else. Let's just see what it is,
Yeah. There was no sense of the gravity of things yet.
Right. They're world-class surgeons. They're able to, make miracles happen, and let's see what they can come up with. I'm excited. This is off my leg. So I'm excited about that, and as much as a terrible thing to hear that your cancer has come back, I know that I'm at the right place where they can do something.
So you never had this fear of your mortality?
No. Oh well. Yeah. No, I didn't. Yeah.
I mean, maybe in fleeting moments, but on the whole, I mean, even going back to the first moment when you heard the news initially. And your response was, I can't do that tomorrow. I have to dance. It's like where some people would be like, oh my God, do something right now. Why do we have to wait till tomorrow?
Right.
There's Maybe it's optimism, maybe it's hopefulness, maybe it's strength, or all of the above.
Yeah.
So the next day comes.
Yeah. So the next day comes, and this is where it all hits, and this is where it happens. That now we're saying, you know, we're talking about what we need to do, and you know, now the only thing left to do to save my life is to amputate my right leg above the knee. And there's a couple different options that we can do with this, and one of them was to do what's called a rotation plasty, where, and my foot was okay, so they could take my right foot and they could spin it backwards and they could attach it to the end of my residual limb, and it could be used as a functional knee, which would be great. However, I didn't want to do that. It just wasn't for me. It didn't seem like it was a thing that I wanted to do. So now I'm angry. I'm upset.
Yeah.
And now we've gone through 7 months of surgery, and now, you know, everything is, you know, it's me just feeling like, what is this? Is it garbage? Is it trash? Is it useless? Everything that I just endured and everything that I went through, what was it for? When now you're saying that, like, okay, we have done everything that we can do, but sorry, we're going to cut your leg off now. And, you know, you have to kind of, you got to give yourself a moment to be upset and to be mad about it, and to know that, you know, this sucks. This really sucks.
Was
it
more about the 7 months that had gone by and what you endured, or was it more about the going forward?
It was both. It was both. It was thinking about, you know, what I went through and how much time I have given up to do this.
Yeah.
And you know, all the pain, you know, the physical pain, not just the emotional and mental, all of that, but the physical pain that I have been in from this, and then the amounts of not being able to sleep at night, and just the wear on my body, of what that was. And now saying that, well, we're going to cut your leg off. We're going to amputate your leg. You know, I'm making it sound a lot more dry than what it was, but that's how I saw it in my head. You know, this is why I was mad, because, you know, I'm thinking about it and I'm just like, you got to be kidding me right now. Like, we're really going to go down this road, and I'm going to live the rest of my life with a missing leg, let alone I don't even know what the next part of this battle is. You know, where are we going from here? Like, my cancer is back and the leg is gone, and is that it? I don't know. So, you know, now in this 4-hour conversation that we had about this bedside, I thought back about my training and my education of being a tap dancer, and something, you know, a video that my tap teacher showed me when I was 16, and that was of a tap dancer named Pegleg Bates. His name was Clayton Pegleg Bates, and he lost his leg in a cotton gin accident at the age of 12, and he taught himself how to tap dance with a peg leg. We were watching footage of him on the Ed Sullivan Show, and, you know, at the time, I never thought that he would serve as a role model to me to continue tap dancing, but it was now in this moment at age 19 that it all came full circle, and that I said to my doctor, I promise you I'm going to tap dance again. And he said, I promise you I'll be there in the front row. And he shook my hand and he vowed to save my life. So on May 21st, I had my right leg amputated above the knee. And I said, goodbye. It's been a great 19 years with you. I am on to new endeavors. I was excited to start this next chapter. I was excited about the technology of prosthetics and what was available. All because of, you know, I mean, it's unfortunate, but, you know, the technology really was really kickstarted from the Gulf War. And, you know, you had lots of amputees, and also in the recent, you know, past wars and I guess current war, if it's still going on, after 9/11. We saw a huge jump in technology with prosthetics and microprocessor knees, and the whole idea was to provide these legs that soldiers would come back, and if they had an amputation, the idea was to get back into the military in some way. And so they wanted these legs to be so advanced, and then they were allowing civilians to utilize this technology so that they could go back to doing everything it is that they wanted to do. So I was ready for this, and I was excited about it. And then my final pathology report came back on my 20-pound leg. That's how much a leg weighs. I had no clue.
Yeah, you shouldn't know.
But it comes back, and it's just a nightmare now, because now they're saying that I have high-grade osteosarcoma, which is almost like the equivalent of stage 4, stage 5 lung cancer when you hear about different stages. And because of that, I have to go through chemotherapy, and because it was high grade, now there's a possibility that the cancer had spread to my lungs. So I had to now not only deal with the loss of my leg, but I had to deal with going through chemotherapy. And now I have to look at myself every day in the mirror and not only see myself missing a leg, but I have to see myself completely wasted away. No hair, sunken in eyes. My eyes are brown. My skin is discolored. My body is just reacting to things in an incredibly negative way, in ways that my doctors have never seen. Chemotherapy take its toll on a patient, and the whole time it was like, how am I going to get through this, and what can I do to just get this off my mind? And it was go back to school. It
Wow.
was to be a student, to have that normalcy in your life, to try and keep up with your friends and have your friends just treat you the way the way you left off with them before cancer. And that's what they did.
I gotta pause on this for a minute, because there's so much in this piece of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to cut you off, but so you're the way that you were talking about going forward and being excited and focusing on the technology,
right?
That's mind-boggling to me. I don't think most people in this world could have possibly looked at that, and it doesn't mean they couldn't have gotten there eventually, but preemptively. Right. That's such a signal to me of.
Yeah, it was. I remember the day that I found out that I had to have my leg amputated. I went home, and so I had just got myself a new car, and I was really excited about it because it was this really cool 2-seater sports car, and I drive stick shift, and it was my I beat cancer gift. And the one thing I was like, I am not giving this car back. This thing is awesome. This is me. And I went home and I got on YouTube, and I just, I was like, someone's got to be doing it. And so I looked up amputee driving manual transmission.
Did you find Alex Zanardi?
What's that?
Did you find Alex Zanardi?
I didn't.
Do you know who he is?
I don't. I don't know who he is.
He's a race car driver.
Oh, he's okay.
Lost his legs in a crash and he drove after that. He actually won in London the Paralympics in the wheelchair race.
Okay. I think I've heard of him now. Now that you're saying he's a race car
driver. So he drives with dual prosthetics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I found a guy who also was bilateral. He had 2 prosthetics, and he was driving completely unmodified manual transmission. I said, well, if he could do it with 2 legs, I'm going to do it with 1 leg. And so that was the whole okay, this is the leg that I want. This is the best leg right now on the market. I have to have it so that I could drive my car. And so, I held out for that, and I got the leg, and I taught myself how to drive stick shift again. Completely unmodified. I still do it now. Now I drive a crazy race car that's super loud and an actual race car too. So who knows? Maybe one day I'll be in the races as well. That's later in my life. We'll see. I have other goals right now. But That's the technology that's available, to be able to walk up and down stairs, step over step, to, my new leg is completely waterproof. I can go in the ocean. I can take showers with it, just quickly, rinse myself off, as opposed to having, take my leg off, get in, use my crutches, get in the shower, sit in the tub or something, sit in the shower. That whole process that I had to do for years, when I was first starting out. Now I have, this super advanced leg. But, technology is just going to keep getting more and more advanced. So I'm excited to see where prosthetics go. But, going back to school was definitely one of the big things for me. Even though my doctor said that I shouldn't do it, my response to them was, well, I already registered. So I took on a full load of classes. I was a full-time student at 14 and a half credits. And I was going through chemotherapy. And
chemotherapy, after you had been through the 7 months you'd been through, where your body was, it's not like you were starting from, the height of your physical fitness as a dancer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I was like, I had done physical therapy for a couple months, but it was nothing, like not being able to walk and just using crutches every day, it takes its toll on you. So it wasn't like I was healing.
The healing process from the surgeries, your body's metabolizing itself just to recover.
Right.
So you're wasting from that as well. That's the atrophy is not just about not using your muscles. It's that your body's consuming itself just to regenerate the tissue.
Right. So I got back to school, and basically what my teachers just said, look, when you're here, you're here. When you're not, you're not. And it is what it is. You have another fight to be fighting, and it's not to be fighting us with grades or homework or, class participation. Just be here. Just when you're here in class, just be here, sit here. We're not gonna, nag on you or, be upset with you for not writing a paper or anything. So they did what they could to keep me there. And, and it wasn't, and I worked. I did. I was memorizing lines. I did a whole musical. I got cast in Sweet Charity in an actual part as a principal role. And I had a song, and I had to get chemo during the day sometimes, and then at night go perform. Wow. I had a frontal lung thoracotomy to see if the cancer had spread to my lungs, and unfortunately it did. And because they found some tumors on the left side, they had to go in on the right side, and they found some more. And so I had two frontal lung thoracotomies, and because of that, I had to go through an additional 9 months of chemotherapy. So I went through 16 months total of chemo. I don't know how many rounds that is. Everyone talks about chemotherapy as rounds, and I don't know what a round is still to this day. All I know is on a Monday, I used to go and I used to get chemo. And by Thursday, I was out of the hospital. I had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and I would start the same process again. And I would do that for 3 weeks in a row. And then sometimes I would get 2 weeks off where I'd be in the hospital. Or sometimes what was happening is that they were modifying my schedule completely because of terrible side effects. So sometimes I'd get a week, I'd have a week off, then I'd get a week, then I'd have a week off, I'd get a week, and I'd have 2 weeks off. So I couldn't tell you how many rounds it actually was, but it was a long time. It was a long time to be going through this just about every day. Yeah. And I finished chemo in October of 2011. It was 2 years exactly that I was going through this entire thing. And that's when I said, hey, all right, it's time to tap dance. Let's see what we can do. We know what Peg Leg Bates is doing, and now, I want to pay tribute to him, and let's make it modern. So I had a very simple peg leg made up for me, and I got myself back into a studio, and I just retaught myself how to tap dance again. And one thing led to another, and interviews started happening, and Dance Spirit magazine. I started to travel around the country and perform at different tap festivals, which was really exciting. And then one thing led to another, and I I landed a guest appearance performance on the Ellen Show. Out in Burbank.
She loves to
Los
dance.
Angeles. She does. She
Yeah.
does. It was great. Yeah, back in 2013. But my one true love was musical theater, and it was I was about to graduate college. I did it in January 2014. I finished my last class in 2013. And the day that I finished my last class, I had a performance in New York City at a nightclub called 54 Below.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't have it any other way. You would be.
Right. It just happened. It just happened that way. And I got there, and, it was a big celebration. It was a big thing. It included a lot of Tony Award winners and
wow,
some really high profile performers. And, that was it. I was making my mark in New York City, and I was ready to, take on this next part of the chapter and the story. And it had its ups and downs, and, for a long time, I only was viewed as a one-legged tap dancer, and it may only be part of the video that you happen to see of me, and a lot of the story kind of gets pushed aside, and there's a lot more than just the tap dancing that I'm proud of. And I found myself in Pittsburgh, auditioning for musicals out there with a company called Pittsburgh CLO, and it got me my equity card, which is like the holy grail of musical theater. It's once you get your equity card, you are now a union actor. You have a union behind you.
Okay.
And so you're covered. And you can go to you can start going to those real auditions that'll get you on Broadway. And I owe a lot to them. I owe a lot to Transcendence Theater Company out in Sonoma, California, who allowed me to really craft my my skills and my art as to find myself as an artist and to find what I want to do as a performer and how to get there, and allow me to dance and sing and act, but to do it in a way that I could take a pop song, for instance, and break it up and put dance breaks in it, and really show off what it is that I do in the best way possible, which then was able to help me craft my own show with my band. We're called Evan and the Seven Legs, and that's spelled Evan and the Seven S''EVAN, because between the four of us we have 7 legs. So just fun play on words. But we're about to have our 11th show now at that nightclub 54 Below. Yeah, and that'll be on July 6th, 2018, which we're looking forward to. But
full circle.
I was able to really kind of utilize a band and put a spin on things of pop music and popular Broadway songs, as well as my own original music. We did that, and then I made my way to New York City with a hit off-Broadway musical called Bastard Jones. And, we really kind of stirred things up over the summer, because the story was about Tom Jones. It was about the history of Tom Jones, a foundling by Henry Fielding. So it took place in the 1700s in London, and he's kind of a nuisance to the town. And his stepbrother and one of the bishop kind of plot against him to banish him. His brother, comes up with this lie and says, "Look, Father banished you. Get the hell out of town. You're not like us. You're different. We don't want you. Goodbye." And he's off to find his way in the land. But it's this interesting, the concept, the idea that we had was that nobody should feel turned away because of adversity, because they're different. And so the creative team thought, well, we should play into American culture, and 20% of all Americans have a disability. So I want this cast to look like America, even though it takes place in London. I want 2% of this cast, 20% of the cast to have a disability. So out of the 9 10 of us, 2 of us were disabled. And the idea that Tom Jones is, shunned and banished for being different was perfect because, here I am as an actor with a disability. I have one leg. And it's saying that, just because you're different doesn't mean that, you can't triumph through that adversity.
Yeah.
So, what better way to have Tom Jones be an actor with a disability? And here I am, super excited to play a role, for a guy who, he has 2 legs, and it was just an incredible demonstration of what true inclusion in the arts is about. It's not about throwing disabled actors a bone. It's not about, saying, look, this part's disabled, so we need a disabled guy. It's about, it's really, and that is true, as well. I believe that if there's a role that calls for, if the character is disabled and there are actors who are ready, willing, and able to play that, they should be cast in that role. But at the same time, you have actors who are disabled, who are amputees, who have cerebral palsy, any sort of disability, blind, who can play roles that don't have to have disability in them. And that was that was the most incredible thing to see happen with Bastard Jones.
Yeah.
So we caused quite a stir in
Yeah.
the press, and it was a hit over the summer. It got me a nomination for a Clive Barnes Award, which I won. I won it, and I think I became the first amputee to win that. I don't know. I looked up the other winners, and they're actually all written out on there, which is pretty exciting. So I'm very excited about that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a huge thing in New York City to be accepted, to be, to receive that award. And
Well, I was going to say, for people who don't know what it is, explain what the Clive Barnes Award means.
Yeah, the Clive Barnes Award is awarded to young actors in New York City for their work and for their with the hope for their future work that they will be able to make a difference in the theater world in showbiz in New York City. It's about it was really about, for me, it was like I said, that triumph through adversity and that recognition that, okay, like, someone gave me a shot to show them what I can do, and somebody else saw that I wasn't just it's not a pity party. I don't want people to show me any pity or to feel bad for me. I am very proud that I was I was treated as as every other actor in New York City. It is a big city, and you are a very small part of that when you're an actor. There's a million people who are all gunning for this, and my competition, the other actress who was nominated was my co-star. We were in the show together.
Yeah.
And she is phenomenal. She has Broadway credits. She's incredible. The other girl, another one who was on Broadway. And here I am, kind of just like, wow, this is a big deal. This is almost like a Tony Award here. So I was very honored to receive that award, and I was very happy that now, somebody wasn't just saying, well, it sucked what you went through. It sucks what you went through, and you came out, a one-legged tap dancer. Good job.
Yeah.
It was all that hard work, while I went through chemo, to go back to school and to perform and to keep going and to study with my teachers and, to bust my ass around the world and, figuring out what I wanted to do, all led up to that moment to say, here's, we see you. We see what you're doing, and we're proud of what you're doing, and you're going to make a difference in this community. And here's a Clive Barnes Award for that.
So, Evan, this to me it's a good way to sort of pull together if people see one of the many videos about you on YouTube, or maybe caught you on Ellen, or, have heard your story, the focus is it's either on your right leg and then it's not there. Or for me, I'm even wondering, like, I feel like the unsung hero's the left leg, and, there's only missing a bone, and having watched you dance, I'm like, I would never have thought that. That's amazing to me. But that's when we talked before the recording, it's like your story is not just about the amputation and the fact that you came back and you're still dancing despite that and having success in it. It's the fact that also the world that you were passionate about and saw your calling in and pursued is incredible. Like being in that world in and of itself is a huge struggle and battle. And so many people either are turned away or turn themselves away because of that struggle. And so here are two pretty extreme situations where you have chosen, and I use that word on purpose, chosen not to get crushed by it and to rise up and to achieve and to keep going despite, I mean, look, the 2 years physically of what you went through and the amount of times that you were given bad news or endured some really terrible things. That's enough. But I don't know if you're a glutton for punishment, but you keep going back to this world where success is really hard to come by for anyone.
Oh yeah. And I mean, just this week with auditions and trying to work, I heard about, I don't know, like 3 no's. That's what it is. You know, it's every day you just go out there and you get told no.
Yeah.
I mean, and then sometimes, you know, sometimes you'll get it. And sometimes it has nothing to do with your talent or what you bring to the table. You know, it's all about, you know, it could just be, well, that guy just looks better, or, you know, he knows this one, or he's going to bring us in X amount of sales because he has 15 million followers. You know, welcome to, you know, the world of, what year is it? 2018. With social networking and how much that plays into a lot.
Yeah. I mean, so that's where, you know, I'm trying to distill from, you know, the focus is on the amputation and everything you went through with that, but there's so much more about how you've persevered, and I'm trying to distill what is the driver of that. And when we talked before, and it was, you know, something in your spirit and your, like, you know, that's why I asked about this sense of, or this fear that you were going to die, and that was never front and center for you. And of course there are dark moments, and there's moments where people are telling you that's a very real possibility, but you still pushed on. And, you know, even like that feeling of excitement about the technology instead of wallowing in the pain. You know, is it something innate, or actually are you so passionate about what you care about that the motivation that comes from that is like, look, there will always be things in my way, great and small. And if I care about what I'm doing, that's always worth pushing through.
Yeah. I mean, that literally hits the nail on the head. It's that it is that motivation and that drive. And there are so many things that I have yet to accomplish that I haven't checked those boxes, and they're left unchecked, and I'm going to continue to work towards them. You know, I want to make 2018 the year that I'm on Broadway. That's it. You know, it's got to happen. And if it happens this year, we're getting back on, and we're going to do a special and say, hey, I'm on Broadway now.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look what happened.
Well, if that's what happens in 2018, I will get myself to New York, and I'm guessing your surgeon is still going to be in the front row, so maybe I can sit behind him.
Yeah. Oh, you know what's funny is it took him about 5-6 years to finally see me dance in person. You know, and then finally he was being, so I'm a part of this organization called the Sarcoma Foundation of America, and you know, they award you know, young survivors and fighters with the Courage Award, you know, once a year. And so in 2014 I was awarded with the Courage Award, and in 2016 my surgeon was awarded with the Nobility in Science Award through this organization. And they had me, you know, host and, you know, kick off the night. And you know, I made a joke to him. It was, you know, hey, Dr. Healy, you know, how you doing over there? You know, we're all here to honor you tonight. You know, it's been quite a while since, you know, we've seen each other. You know, I only see you once a year now for our annual checkup. But you know, when I was about to have my leg amputated, you know, you said that you'd be there in the front row, see me tap dancing. And it's been about about 6 years, man. What the hell took you so long?
Yeah.
You're finally here, you know? And, he, of course, laughed, and everyone went up and, in a gas.
Yeah.
And then I started, and, he was the first one out on the dance floor. So, he was very proud of me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a testament to
Mm-hmm.
to what he was able to do as well. I always wonder about doctors in that space where, mortality is a very real thing that they face on a regular basis, despite some Herculean efforts. And, what's their coping mechanism and what keeps them fighting through? And is it about, I've had surgery 15 times, not any of them anywhere near any of what you've gone through, but there's some surgeons who really stand out, and it's the ones who are really human. And most of them are actually a lot colder. And I wonder if that's like when you deal with death that much, if you almost have to detach a bit. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting because just, knowing him as a doctor, like when I have checkups, and from when I was going through everything, he was very serious. He's a very serious person. And then, knowing him now, after everything that we've been through, and now, life moving forward, he's
relationship now. Right?
Yeah, very different relationship.
Yeah.
Very different. And I think he, I think that's how he has to be. He can't get, he can't let his emotions get, in the way of his job and in the way of, saving a life possibly, or not being able to save a life. Yeah. And, it's so interesting now, having that relationship with him, and, him being my doctor and someone who saved my life and, gave me a second chance to do everything and more, that, we have a different way of looking at things now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Evan, it's, to call it a beautiful story it's almost, it's not enough, and it's the wrong word in a lot of other ways, because it's a story that is filled with a level of pain and suffering that no human should have to endure. And talking to you, it's really hard to, like, I don't, and this is why I think, for my son to be so inspired, like, it's hard to realize, like, what this guy went through is beyond what you could ever imagine, because you don't seem to be filled with that. You don't seem to be filled with regret and anger and pain. And yeah, it's been a few years, but it hasn't been 20. Right. And that to me is a great source of inspiration in getting to know you a bit, is there's a sense of possibility and it being worthwhile to continue to push through regardless of what you're facing, because like you said, you still have boxes you want to check off.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. And those are the things that keep me going every day. I'm about to take on a new endeavor of living in New York City, and what is that going to bring as an amputee? So it's, Well, what
about having a car in New York City? That could even be hard. Are you going to have your car there or no?
I can't do it. I have to garage it. Oh, I have to garage my car.
That is a whole other level of suffering that,
I know.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
I know. And basically succumbing to the MTA.
Yeah.
And the subway.
Which is, that's another thing is, just one more thing to deal with that.
Right.
You were telling me, I feel I keep referencing our conversation before recording, but when you were telling me about, all the things that you have to think about that you wouldn't have had to otherwise. And when you're like, you're in the middle of an airport in Ohio or whatever, and you don't have your charger for your leg. And it's like,
and your leg dies.
Your charger for your leg. Like, that's not a problem that people would think about.
Right. And, I'm running across Charlotte Airport, which is the largest airport in the country. And I make it, and I finally sit in my plane seat, and it's like I feel the vibrations, like
it's letting you know.
Leg is dead. Thank God it died now, and not while I was trying to run across the airport. Would have face palmed it.
Yeah.
But like things like that, and just having to take my leg off when I go to bed, having put my leg on to start my day, and that my day is not really going to start until I put that leg on. That's it. You know, I just can't do a day of like, I could do a day of crutches, but I'm not doing anything that day.
Yeah.
On that day, it's home, and it's not leaving, you know, and it's computer and it's games and it's just relaxing.
Yeah.
On those days, every other day, if things are going to get done, the leg has to be on. And now it's on for like, you know, 16 to 18 hours, you know, of a day that I'm just going, and I'm up early in the morning, and I'm, you know, and it's on until 1 o'clock, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Do you not want it on sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it gets frustrating. You feel it. I mean, I don't have a knee, so I actually have to, you know, my body has to voluntarily move this leg. Even though it has computers in it, I still have to work different muscles. And I still have to get it into, you know, swing phase. And sometimes you get cuts and bruises from the socket, and it comes up pretty close to, you know, to the groin. So there's lots of, you know,
it's a whole other consideration.
Yeah. Different areas. Yeah.
Wow. I figure we could just keep talking. I mean, I'm loving this, but so you've got 54 Below on July 6th. How else can people see you, find out what's going on, keep up on?
Everyone can keep up with me. All of my social media handles are all at Lord_Pegleg. That's Lord Pegleg.
That's awesome. Lord_Pegleg.
Yeah. So Lord the underscore and then Pegleg. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
And I always post, you know, information about shows and updates, and, you know, lots of different news and what's going to happen, and, you know, that's where I am.
And you're active and responsive on there, because that's how I got a hold of you.
Yeah. For the most part, there is one page of mine that I'm not that active on. That may have been the page that we met on.
Oh,
but that may have been like my fan page. But at that point, I know a video had just dropped.
Right. So you were seeing stuff.
Everyone was kind of like, ah! So I was like, okay, I got to be on this page for now. But yeah, I mean, I get the notifications. It all goes to my phone.
Cool.
Or my 7 other Apple products that all do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Either way, I'm very thankful that you responded. It's we actually had to reschedule, and I have to say, I talked to my son the next morning, and he was like, "How was it?" I was like, "Oh, buddy, I didn't talk to him yet," and he was like, kind of let down by me.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. So, you know,
you have to tell him now.
Yeah, no, as soon as we get off, I'm gonna get to him.
For an hour and 11 minutes. Oh, coming up on an hour and 12 minutes.
No, he's, you know, you're awesome, man. And for everything that you've been through, and that it just doesn't even show. Like, you persevere. I love that. You're such an embodiment of what I talk about with this whole do-a-day thing. And that's why I knew when I started to get a taste of your story, I was like, I have to share this with the audience. Like, this is too good to pass up. So thank you very mumuch for coming on.
You're welcome. And thank you. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I've had a good time. Yeah.
Evan, you know, you just reiterated this whole point over and over again about, like, every single roadblock or bigger, that just didn't stop you. You just went on to the next. And I think that's such a great reminder of, you know, how I try to leave this thing every time. It's just reminding people, look, today's a new day.
Go out and do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Evan.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, now you get it. Now you understand why I couldn't fully introduce him up front, because you've got to hear that story firsthand, live from him, without going into it knowing what you're about to get. And it's a big one. I mean, you know, for your whole future, your dreams to be centered on something that, as far as you know, requires both legs, to then face cancer, to think that you're still going to have your leg, and to wake up and not have it anymore. And then what? And he never quit. And he never said, why me? And all of it. Like, think about that. When your chips are down, when you're in pain, when you're struggling, think about what he went through how he chose to interact with it, and how he chose to live his life coming out of it. That is incredible. This is not a bitter guy. This is not a guy who feels like a victim. And of course he had pain, physical and emotional. He's just choosing not to let that be his dictated story. You know, that word choose, it's in there. I'm blown away. I'm very lucky that I got to talk to Evan and got to know him a bit. I'm inspired by him. I'm impressed by him. And I'm impressed by what it means for all of us. So take that, grow from it. You can follow him and all that. You know, I feel kind of petty talking about following on social media and subscribing to the show and all that on the back of this episode. I would just say there's a lot that you can get from following Evan. There's a lot you can get from subscribing to this show and following me, because it's stuff like this. And if this doesn't inspire you, I don't know what will. So there's your call to action to go out and do a day. I mean, that's about as real as it gets. It's a choice. Choose it, people. Today's your day. Go out and do it just like Evan does every single day from the right attitude. Take care, everyone.